A very good morning, students of class 12th. Welcome to the channel by Seema Makhijani. I'm trying to make chemistry easier for you and a little more interesting for you people. Today's topic is, we are still on group 16. This is the part 2 of the topic group 16. In the first part, we did the concepts, and in this particular part, we'll only be focusing on more reasoning questions. A few reasoning questions were also done in part 1. Okay, so let's begin with the further reasoning questions. In case you've not seen the part 1, I would advise please watch the part 1 for better understanding for part 2. Alright, moving now with the reasoning questions. Question number 1. Which out of H2S and H2TE is a better reducing agent and why? Now, when we talk about a reducing agent, it is a hydrogen donor. To reduce somebody else, the other person has to gain hydrogen, which means your agent should be a hydrogen donor. Now, out of H2S and H2TE, this is your H2S and this is your H2TE. I have deliberately shown you a longer bond length here. Bond length is longer, which means the bond becomes weaker, which means that the bond dissociation energy is low in case of H2TE. The reason being, tellurium is a larger sized atom and it overlaps with the smaller sized hydrogen. There is ineffective overlap of orbitals between a large sized atom and a small sized atoms, leading to a weaker bond. Hence, this bond is weak as compared to the H and sulfur bond. So this bond easily weaks because the bond dissociation is low. There is ineffective overlap in between hydrogen and Te due to difference in atomic radii. Fine. So the better reducing agent is, your answer is H2Te. Moving to the next question. Compare the bond angle between H2O and H2S. Now, H2O is this, due to the two lone pairs there is a bent geometry, while H2S is this, again a bent geometry due to the presence of lone pair. Out of these two, oxygen is small in size and is also more electronegative. Therefore, the shared pair of electron is pulled towards oxygen because of the high electronegativity. Now, when these bond pairs are pulled towards oxygen, they start repelling each other. So, the bond pair repulsion is greater in case of H2O as compared to H2S due to the larger size of sulfur, and this is less electronegative. The electron pair does not shift much towards sulfur. They are farther apart, so there is lesser repulsion between bond pair, whereas in this case, due to the large bond pair repulsion, the bond angle becomes larger. So, compare the bond angles between this. Water would have a larger bond angle. Fine. Moving to the third question. Why is oxygen, that is ozone, the allotrope of oxygen, that is ozone, is thermodynamically unstable? Now, to answer this particular question, you need to know this particular data. Ozone molecule easily decomposes into oxygen, and the reason is delta H is a negative value, which means energy is released when ozone changes to oxygen, which means this is more stable than ozone. Also, as you can see, here you have 2 moles, here you have 3 moles, therefore delta S is positive. What is delta S? This is entropy, which measure the randomness, which means the movement. Out of these two, here you have 2 moles of ozone molecules, that is 6.022 10 to the power 23 into 2 number of O3 molecules, while in this case you have 6.022 10 to the power 23 into 3 number of O2 molecules. Hence, the movement and mobility would be observed more if the number of molecules are more. So, delta S is positive. You very well know for the spontaneity of process, you need to find out delta G. Delta G is given by delta S minus T delta S. Now, out of which this value as given is negative, delta S is positive, temperature is in Kelvin scale, so this would also be positive. So the sum would always be negative. Since for this process delta G is negative, therefore it is spontaneous, which means ozone would easily go to oxygen, hence it is thermodynamically unstable. Moving on, the next question is OF6 is unstable while SF6 is stable. Now, for the compound OF6 to be formed, oxygen needs to make 6 bonds. Therefore, it needs 6 orbitals in the valence shell. We very well know oxygen has 2s and 2p in the valence shell. Therefore, total orbitals is only 4. Being the first member of the second period, it has maximum covalency equal to 4. Therefore, due to absence of d orbital or the d subshell, as you very well know, there is nothing called as 2d which can exist. Absence of d subshell is the key reason why oxygen can never form OF6 while sulfur can form SF6, because it has a 3s, 3p and 3 orbit has also got a d subshell. So in this case the bonds can be more than 4, whereas oxygen being the first member of group number 16 cannot form more than 4 bonds. Coming to the next question. The next question is you have to predict the structure of SF4, and we would be doing it on the basis of the VSEPR theory. Now the central atom is sulfur and it has 6 valence electrons. Out of these 6 valence electrons, it has used 4 with fluorine. That means there are 4 bond pairs and 2 electrons are left non-bonded. That means there is 1 lone pair. Now for such a geometry, the structure is sulfur forming 3 bonds like this, with each bond angle being 120, while 2 bonds are formed above and below, which are your axial bonds, while these 3 are your equatorial bonds. These bonds are at 90 degrees, while equatorial plane bonds are at 120. Lone pair always causes maximum repulsion. Therefore, you always prefer to place it at a position where the bond angle is large so that the repulsion is less. So it is clearly understood that your preference would be to keep the lone pair on the equatorial position, because here the bond angle is 120. Rest positions would be by fluorine. So your fluorine takes these 2 positions in the equatorial plane and the axial positions. Now this position, if you turn this molecule, if I turn this molecule like this, what do I end up in? This molecule would look like this, with 2 fluorines here and 2 fluorines here, which looks like a seesaw. This is the swing that the small kids go to the park for. This is the seesaw geometry. Alright, moving to the next question. SO2 is a temporary bleach while Cl2 is a permanent bleach. Now, bleach means your color changes to white. Now, this function can be done by SO2 as well as can be done by Cl2. What you need to understand is that Cl2 is an oxidizing agent. It oxidizes your color to make it white. But SO2 is a reducing agent. So, if you are using SO2, it reduces the color to form white. Now, this white fabric, if kept in air, that is in the presence of oxygen, can be re-oxidized to give you color, but this would only happen if you are talking about SO2, because with chlorine it is white due to oxidation, whereas with SO2 it is white due to reduction. So if you are using SO2 as a reducing agent and the color has vanished due to reduction, then the color will be regained back due to oxidation. Therefore, we say SO2 is a temporary bleach because it bleaches via reduction, while Cl2 is a permanent bleach because it bleaches via oxidation. The color is lost due to oxidation, and even if you keep this in air, it would still remain white because it has been oxidized already. Fine. Moving on further, the next question is cane sugar chars in concentrated sulfuric acid. Chars means changes to carbon. Now cane sugar is C12H22O11, the sugar that is your edible sugar. If you treat it with concentrated sulfuric acid, this concentrated sulfuric acid is a dehydrating agent. This removes water. So, it removes 11 water molecules. So, what are you left with? You are left with 12 carbons, 12 moles of carbons, and carbon you very well know is black in color. So, we say the cane sugar is charred due to concentrated sulfuric acid via the dehydrating agent of sulfuric acid, which takes away the water from this, and you are left with carbon. Despite being small in size, group 16 members have a lower ionization energy in comparison to group 15 members. Now let's talk about the general electronic configuration. For group 15 it is Ns2 Np3, while for group 16 it is Ns2 Np4. Now as you can clearly see, if you have to talk about ionization energy, which means remove electron, which means energy is required to remove the electron, you very well know this is half filled, and half filled EC is stable. So the energy required to remove this electron is going to be much larger. So even if oxygen is smaller, but this easily loses one electron and prefers to go to Np3, which is a stable EC. Hence the ionization here is lower, while electron removal in this case is higher because you have to remove it from a stable configuration. Fine. Moving ahead, why does the stability of -2 oxidation state, -2 means gain of electron, decreases down the group? As you very well know, oxygen, sulfur, selenium, tellurium, polonium. On moving down the group, the size increases. Therefore, the effectivity of nuclear charge decreases. Therefore, it is difficult to gain electron. Hence, therefore, the chances of -2 oxidation state go on decreasing. Fine. Or else you can also say that electron gain enthalpy is less negative on moving down, which means electron gain is difficult on moving down because of the increase in the size, and so the nuclear charge effectivity goes on decreasing. Coming to the next, oxygen is a gas while sulfur is a solid. Now first you need to talk about their atomicity. What do you mean by atomicity? The number of atoms in the molecule, which means in case of oxygen you know it is O2, and in case of sulfur it is S8. Oxygen can exist as a O2 because it has a tendency to form p-pi multiple bond. Because of small size, the sideways overlap to form the pi bond is easier, whereas sulfur has got only single bonds in this crown-like structure because sulfur does not easily form p-pi multiple bonding. Therefore, in this case, for sulfur 8, your size is larger, molecular mass is higher, therefore, your London force is higher, so your intermolecular force of attraction is higher. Hence, it is solid. more the intermolecular force, more are the chances for the molecules to be tightly packed. Whereas in this case, the size is small, this has a lower intermolecular force of attraction. Therefore, it prefers to exist as a gas. Oxygen gas is diatomic with 16 electrons. Now, this 16 electron ka matlab it has even electrons, but it is still paramagnetic, which means it has unpaired electrons. You have to justify it. Now, we are talking about O2 molecule. So, we will be talking about the molecular orbital theory. So, when I talk about the molecular orbital theory, we need to talk about the electronic configuration. So, when I talk about electronic configuration, if you remember the molecular orbital theory, this is how it was. So, when we talk about the molecular orbital theory, you need to fill electrons in the molecular orbitals. There are 16 electrons to be filled up. So, let's begin. Sigma 1 is 2, sigma star 1 is 2, sigma 2 is 2, sigma star 2 is 2, sigma 2p z2, pi 2p x1, pi 2p y1, and then you will pair according to Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity. Let's check how many electrons have been filled. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. You're left with 2 more. Now these two are of same energy. So the electron filling has to be 1 each. So you can clearly see there are 2 unpaired electrons in the electronic configuration for O2. Despite having even electrons, it still remains paramagnetic. Moving on to the next question. The next question is sulfur, which we well know is in S8 unit, but in vapor state, which means when you continuously keep heating it to transform this solid into a gaseous form, it exists as S2, which is exactly like O2. And therefore, this also becomes paramagnetic. Of course, we are incapable of writing the electronic configuration as we did for oxygen, but what we can say is S2, like O2, has unpaired electrons in anti-bonding pi star 3px and pi star 3py molecular orbitals. Here you had pi star 2px and pi star 2py. Now since sulfur is larger in the next shell, so it would be pi star 3px and pi star 3py would have one electron exactly like oxygen. Therefore, this would be paramagnetic. Why is water a liquid while H2S is a gas? Now, when we talk about water a liquid, there is a special property in case of water where the water molecules are bound to each other via intermolecular hydrogen bonding, which is a strong intermolecular force of attraction. Strong intermolecular force of attraction, which is your hydrogen bonding, which causes the molecules to move closer. Therefore, it becomes a liquid. While in case of H2S, the intermolecular force of attraction will be that of dipole-dipole. This does not form a hydrogen bonding. Coming to the next, arrange the following in increasing order of acidic character. Now, acidic character is loss of a proton. Now, this loss of a proton is going to happen only if the bond is weak. We very well know tellurium to hydrogen bond is weak as compared to oxygen to hydrogen. Therefore, because this bond has got a low bond dissociation energy, the hydrogen loss in this case is easier. Therefore, the acidic character order would be like this. Coming to the last question of the class, I've tried to cover them up, but we are still left with a few more. Arrange the hydrides in increasing order of boiling point. When I talk about this, the boiling point is directly proportional to intermolecular force of attraction. Now, down the group, size increases. Therefore, the London force increases. Therefore, the boiling point should increase. And it does. But the problem is with H2O. H2O has a very strong hydrogen bonding, because of which this has to be written here. So your order for the increasing boiling point is like this, where water takes the lead due to strong intermolecular hydrogen bonding present in case of water molecules. Fine? Alright, coming to the next. Ozone has a bent geometry. Let's draw the structure of ozone. Ozone has a coordinate bond like this. If you are not aware of it, please watch my lecture on coordinate bonding to understand the structure of ozone. And out of this oxygen, out of these three, the central oxygen has used 2 electrons here and 2 here. It is still left with a pair of electron, which is your lone pair, which causes the geometry to be bent. So the reason is lone pair on central oxygen is the cause of bent geometry. The 2 oxygen bonds of ozone are identical. Now, ozone has resonating structures of the type this, and the resonance hybrid therefore is like this, which has a partial double bond character. Therefore, both these bonds have equal length due to resonance in them. Now, when we talk about pyrosulfuric acid, this has got sulfuric acid molecules. A sulfuric acid molecule looks like this. If you have 2 sulfuric acid molecules, this is their structure, and pyro means heating. So if you heat them, then they lose a water molecule. This is hydrogen. This loses a water molecule. What do you end up in? SO, another O, and an OH, and you are left with an SOS bond, double bond, and an OH. Check the formula. This has got 2 hydrogens, 2 sulfurs, and check the number of oxygens. You would end up in pyrosulfuric acid, which is also called as oleum, formed when sulfuric acid loses a water molecule. Coming to the last, which out of sulfuric acid and sulfurous acid will have a smaller bond angle. Now, sulfuric acid has a structure like this, while sulfurous acid has a structure like this. As you can clearly see, presence of a lone pair will cause lone pair, bond pair repulsion. Hence, this would push the bond pairs below, hence the angle will reduce. While there is no lone pair in sulfuric acid, therefore the bond angle would be larger. In this case also the hybridization is sp3, 4 sigma bonds. Here also you have 4 sigma bonds plus 1 lone pair, therefore this is also sp3. But it is due to the presence of lone pair which causes the bond angle to be lower. So, which would have smaller bond angle? The answer is sulfurous acid will have smaller bond angle. With this, I conclude the reasoning questions of this particular chapter. I hope you have understood the concept of the reasoning questions that I could cover up. We can still have a few more if time permits. We can still do 3 more, and with which I would end the class. Please keep sharing and liking the video. Bless you kids. Why does sulfur have a greater tendency of catenation? Now, oxygen, as you know, exists like this, while sulfur can exist like this. The reason is here it has a p-pi multiple bond forming tendency, whereas in this case the pi bond is very weak because of the large size of sulfur. Also, single bond oxygen is very weak. The reason is your lone pair repulsion. Therefore, oxygen does not prefer to form single bonds, while sulfur can form single bonds, hence can easily show catenation. SF6 is an inert molecule because your sulfur is surrounded by 6 fluorine molecules around it, and these 6 fluorine molecules protect the sulfur for reaction with water. Hence, the presence of the 6 fluorine molecules around the small sulfur atom causes them to be sterically protected. That is, in the space. Sterically protected means protected all over. The last question with which I will end the class. Sulfuric acid can lose 2 hydrogens. So your H2SO4 in the first step loses 1 hydrogen ion to liberate bisulfate, and there is a Ka value which is large. Now if you want this to change into SO4 2 minus and leave a proton, this becomes difficult. The reason is a negative identity cannot liberate H positive, it would rather attract the H positive. Therefore, the Ka2, the dissociation constant 2 for the second H positive to be released is a very low value, because the reason is anions attract H positive and not liberate H positive. A negative ion would prefer to attract the H positive ion rather than release the H positive ion. With this, I close my class, trying to cover the concept of the reasoning questions of P block. Bless you kids, do well in life, keep liking, keep sharing with your friends. Thanks a ton.